We'll keep the comments.
Thank you so much for being here. I am thrilled with the amount of folks we have here tonight. We're excited that Bay County, super excited about everyone being here. We have our three House District 45 candidates, and I'm thankful that we all have crazy busy schedules. And I'm so thrilled that y'all came to with us tonight. Give Blanco County an idea of what you're about, what you can do for us. Now, we're going to start by letting Pastor C. Sanchez say our prayer for the evening.
Let's pray. Lord God, thank you that we have the freedom to gather and discuss the issues. Thank you that we live in a country that believes in you and we trust in you to do what's right. I pray this evening that all the questions would be answered to everyone's satisfaction, that we would be calm, that we would be reasonable, that we would have listening ears, and that we would be discerning about who the best choices are to help lead us in this county. So we thank you once again for the hospitality of the Old 300 restaurant and for all the people who are gathered here. Let us be wise with the decisions that we make after this evening. We thank you, Lord, for this great country of America. And Lord, it truly is, everything is on the line, Lord, and from the smaller races to the great ones. But we ask, God, that regardless, you would be glorified. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Real quickly, I want to give everyone kind of an overview of what's going to be happening tonight. We have our three candidates. The county chair, myself and the precinct chair has been encouraging individuals to present questions over the last few weeks. We went through the questions. We've had some really good responses. We've had to combine some questions because a lot of folks are concerned about the same things. So we brought it down to 9 solid questions that came from the constituents. And each candidate is going to be asked the exact same question, and they will have 2 minutes to respond to that question. George Cochran is our precinct chair, and he will be the timekeeper. If a candidate, your time is up, we're not trying to be rude, we're just trying to keep things moving. We'll say time's up, and then you'll stop. And we'll just keep moving on in that fashion. By the end, if your questions have not been answered, you see note cards and pencils and pens in front of you, feel free to write questions. And they will need to be a question that each candidate will answer. We're not going to ask a specific candidate a specific question. A question goes to all 3 candidates. If the question hasn't been answered, if we have time permitting, we will ask those. Afterwards, the candidates will each have up to 5 minutes for a wrap-up to tell us everything they need to tell us. And then at that point, we will have an opportunity to mingle with the candidates if we have time and go from there. Before we get started, we have Nathan McDaniel here from Chip Roy's office. I wanted to give him a minute.
Well, thank you so much, Marlene, and congratulations on being the new chairwoman of the GOP. I hope that Listen, unfortunately, the congressman had to fly to D.C. today, or else he would be here as well. But he very much appreciates all the work that everybody in this room did in 2018 and every year before that, and then all the work that we're going to do in 2020 to help keep Texas red. Now, there's not a whole lot going on in D.C. that actually affects your lives every single day right now. As you can see, there's been a bunch of partisanship, and the Democrats have been kind of unhinged a little bit lately, but the congressman tries to hang his hat on the things that he campaigned on. He works every day to do the things that you send him to DC to do, and that's fiscal sanity, taking care of our men and women in uniform and making sure they have the tools and resources they need while they're abroad and the care they deserve when they get home, figuring out our broken healthcare system, figuring out our broken southern border of our immigration system, and then last but certainly not least is getting DC out of the way of your life and how you live here in Blanco, Texas. I will note that the Texas House is incredibly important this year. There's a census coming up in 2020, and in 2021, one of these fine folks will be drawing the maps for all the elected officials in Texas, and those will be in place for 10 years. So, we got one stolen from us in HD45 in 2018. Aaron Zwiener does not represent this district. One of these three will represent this district. So take this forum tonight, take the questions that you have, the opportunity to meet the candidates, and I hope that we can do our job in 2020 and send a good, rock-solid conservative to help get those districts drawn. So thank y'all so much for your support. We have some yard signs, we have some stickers, and I'll be around. And also, I almost forgot. We just hired a deputy campaign manager. This is Jennifer Carter. She's on our team, and she will be. And she is a rock star, and so we're getting her feet wet. This is actually her first event, so
Yeah.
thank you all for having us.
Thank you.
That's my first. That's what I told her. Thanks, y'all.
Before we begin, again, I'm thrilled with the number of folks that are here. We didn't anticipate this many, so we do not have a microphone. If it gets to where you cannot hear, feel free to move around or raise your hand, and we'll try to get the candidates to speak louder or in your voice. Okay, so we do apologize for that. And also, just one quick mention, we don't really have time for her to say anything, but we've got Lonnie Hawk here, and she's running for the State Board of Education. Where are you, Lonnie? There she is. And we will get some more information on her. Feel free to look her up and get some of those things going as well. We want to get behind her. All right, is everyone ready? Candidates, are you ready? Now, how we're going to start is I'm going to draw a number here on my piece of paper, 1 through 20, and then each of you tell me your number, whoever's closest starts, and then we'll go clockwise from there. All right?
11.
4.
16.
It's 13. All right. This is going to be a two-part question. Since it is pretty. Are we opening? Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. You get 2 minutes.
Yes,
Each
ma'am.
candidate gets 2 minutes. So go ahead and feel free to stand if you like.
Thank you. Howdy, how y'all doing tonight? Y'all hear me? I'll use my infantry voice. I'm Austin Talley. Family's been here since 1820. Colonel James Neal, Battle Gonzalez, artillery commanders on my mother's side, fired that cannon when people said they would take their arms. On my father's side is Edward Burleson, the vice president of Texas that helped map out what is Hays County today. So I got deep roots here. My grandfather and my uncle went to Texas State. So this isn't foreign territory to me. I haven't been home the last 6 years. I've probably served my country for 16 years in uniform. After a 7-year hiatus, I went back into the Army Reserves. First infantry, well, first Navy, then Army infantry, now in the intelligence community. It's a lot easier on my body. I'm getting older. I helped run 5 nonprofits. 3 of them are federal national nonprofits, and 2 are local nonprofits. One of them is headquartered right here in Dripping Springs, where we just had our grand opening of our warehouse. We won our 4th Platinum Transparency Award, so that means we're good stewards of your donor's dollar, and we're 100% transparent, which is what is required of government, and I don't think we're doing that enough. I help run 5 for-profit companies. One of them's in development, and the other one's in energy and gas. That are the most 2 companies I'm proud of today. One of them's employing 1,200 people across the United States. We're building a big development in Grapevine for the Texas Blues Museum. People don't know there's a lot of blues history here in Texas. I think all of those skill sets will suit me well when it goes to be your best employee. Because that's what this is. This is a job interview. We need to be looking at experiences that are proven, skills that are proven and tried, and what are we going to do when face those same dilemmas in the job that we're applying for in front of you or hiring managers. So that's what we're here today. And I put my name, just like I did on the dotted line, I swore my right hand to protect the Constitution of the United States from foreign and domestic enemies. Why are we still talking about tax reform? Why are we still talking about education? Why are we still talking about things that matter to you when we control all three levels of our House, Senate, and governor's office since 2006? I'm going to put the work back in government. If they ain't working 16, 20-hour days for 140 days a session, which is shorter than my deployments, they don't deserve the job. I'm Austin Talley. If you go to talleyfortexas.com and learn a little bit about me, and I hope to count on your vote. I'm first on the ballot. I hope I'm first in your heart. Come February 18th to the 23rd is early election, and March 3rd is the primary. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Carrie Isaac. I'm running to be your state representative. I met my husband in college, Jason. We'll be married 20 years in April. We have 2 teenage sons, Aiden and Landon, and our girl is our Jack Russell Terrier, Daisy. I understand that property taxes are out of control and have created a burden on our working families, our small businesses, and our seniors. I will fight to rework the entire property tax system to alleviate the burden on our families. I know that small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and I will work to cut regulations and red tape that make it difficult for our businesses to thrive. I agree with President Trump. We have to secure our border. I will work to make sure that our border security is fully funded, so we can protect our families and our communities. I am committed to teachers and students. I will work to direct funds into the classroom so that our teachers and our students have the best chance to as I say, survive, to excel and survive. I have been endorsed by the NRA and Texas State Rifle Association. I'm the only non-incumbent in the entire state of Texas that is endorsed by the NRA. They know that I am the best person to win in November and that I am the best person to protect our ability to keep and bear arms. I am also endorsed by the Right to Life, Texas Right to Life and Pro-Life Texas. I will unapologetically fight for our right, for our children's right to life. I will also fight to protect our hill country. We must protect and utilize our resources wisely. Our current state representative is the 6th most liberal Democrat socialist in the Texas House out of 150 members. I'm the best candidate to beat her in November. I am the only candidate that not only has these local endorsements and support, but I have the statewide endorsements and support. I have outraised both of my primary opponents combined. I have the fundraising abilities to win in November. Erin Zwiener is going to be very well funded, especially from outside of our state. I have the ability to beat her and outraise her. I have the campaign experience needed to win. I have been campaigning every election cycle for the past 10 years. And I also have the experience beating Democrats in House District 45. Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you for a great event, and to everyone here tonight, thank you for being here. We're going to have a lot of time to talk about policy tonight. You're going to get to hear our thoughts on what's good, bad, right, wrong with our system, but I want to introduce myself. My family moved to Hays County 36 years ago, and this is home to me. This is the place that I grew up. It's where I graduated high school. My mother, who's back there, her name's Jody Weinmore. She was an elementary school teacher and principal in the Hayes School District. She was actually one of my 4th grade teachers. My dad was a small business owner. He came to Central Texas in the early 80s because the real estate market was booming. We started building homes. So they brought us down here. And they laid a foundation. They established roots in this community. I'm going to tell you a story I've told a few people before, and I think it personifies the connection with my parents in this community and what they've done for me.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? It was about 2 years ago, and we were out in the backyard, and I was moving rocks. I picked up this real big rock, and there was this huge snake underneath it. And so I finally got it cornered, but it was big. It was about 6 feet long, and I wasn't quite certain what to do with it, and I couldn't get a good angle on it. So I did at that point what I think any reasonable, self-respecting 35-year-old would have done. I called my dad. He's standing back there. The devotion, love, and respect for this district that my parents showed me, not only through their involvement in the business community, the schools, the churches, but politically, established my love for this district. This isn't about politics. This isn't about political opportunity. This is about the place we call home. This is where I've been for 36 years. This is the place that I love. This is the place that I met my wife at Texas State University. Love at its best makes you a better person. And that's what my wife has done for me. And I'm proud that she's here tonight. I'm also proud that my 4 kids are here tonight. My son Ken is 14. My daughters Isla, 10, Abigail and Avery, both 8. They're both here tonight. They're going to the same public school that I went to as a young man. I'm doing this because I love this community. Because this community is given to me. And I want to leave for them what I have. And then some. I want them to have a better place. I want them to grow up in a world where our conservative values still mean something. Thank you.
Okay, now, Mr. Talley, this is a 2-part question. Can't hear you. Ready?
Turn your voice up a little bit.
Since it is critically important that Ms. Weiner is defeated during this election, will each of you promise to endorse and work 100% for whoever is the winner of the Republican primary on May 3rd? And as a Republican candidate for Texas 45, what is your strategy to win the Texas 45 seat?
Well, I think the second answer is going to answer the first as well. So, in short, yes, I would endorse the candidate to go and beat Aaron's Weiner, because that's the most important thing when in the general. I think talking about the primary is getting the best applicant to do the job, to go forth and do legislation. It's not just about being a candidate. So I went around East County and a little bit of Blanco, and I got invited up to down to Hidalgo, got invited up to Amarillo, and I talked about one thing. I got invited to Comau, because that's where I grew up as well, New Braunfels High School, Cliff Kingsbury. And I said you have to do the same thing in the military. You have to always recruit. You have to always train and educate and integrate into your organization. You have to empower them to leadership roles so they feel that they're a part of the team and go be effective as members of your body. So are we training our precinct chairs? Is our county chairs doing their job to unite the organizations? Do we have more or less? So that's the same thing you need to do to go win the general. You got to unite the party. You got to be a leader that inspires people and gets them to believe that you're going to be an effective employee to get the job done. Not just telling you they're going to do the same thing that they've told you the last 15 years, 20 years. We're still talking about taxes. We're still talking about education. So I'm tired of talking. And I mean less work. No, less talk, more work. That's why it's on my campaign sign. Less talk, more work. Because I was told to be a person of action. I was taught that as my grandfather was ranching, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, drinking his toast stovetop coffee, thinking about what he's going to do for the next 10 hours of the day. I took that with me in the military. So I promise you I will work harder than anybody to unite this organization and be effective in the general. Thank you.
Yes, I will endorse whoever wins here because it is that important that we unite to beat Aaron Sweener. I will beat Aaron Sweener by exposing her record and by informing the voters of what she has stood for, what she stands for, and what she has done. She voted against taxpayers every single time this past session. She voted against our Second Amendment rights 10 times. She voted against campus free speech. She filed 3 bills that punish Christians. And she refused to vote to save the life of a newborn baby who survived a botched abortion. She is bad for Hayes and Blanco and bad for Texas. Governor Abbott won this district. We just have to get the conservative voters out. And if I can inform people of what she has done, I believe it will motivate people. And I will outwork her as well. I work hard. I'm a hard worker. Thank you.
The answer to your first question is unequivocally yes. This takes me back to 2016, and I think it was the most grave mistake that Ted Cruz made in his political career. He stood up on the stage of the National Convention and he told Republicans to vote their conscience. But he wouldn't unequivocally endorse the president. Whatever disagreement there is, whatever difference of opinion there may be, when the primary is over, we all come home. We come home because we are united in purpose. There's a vision bigger than this. We're working for something beyond this primary. This isn't about Austin, Kerry, or Bud. This is about the future of our state and the future of our nation. And if we can't get past that, then we oughtn't be here. I'm going to tell you what I did this week. The strategy is working. It's how I've built my law practice. It's how I've taken an opportunity and grown it into something that I'm proud of. I logged on my phone this weekend over 20 miles. I ran house to house over 20 miles and I put up over 50 yard signs. That's the example of the work that I'll put in. In addition to that, it's having the right ideas. Don't let the last election cycle fool you. Representative Zwiener was swept in on the veto tide. And when the political wind is correct, and they will, this district will once again have a representative that meets with its expectations, its conservative expectations. Thank you.
Stand up. Maybe y'all can hear me better. Question number 2 is also a 2-part question. Who should determine what is appropriate curriculum for students to become responsible citizens in today's society? And do you feel that it is the primary role of the local school board or the state legislature?
I believe local control is best, no matter what. I think it starts within the household and it starts within the school districts. I think we've learned a lot in Wimberley on how important it is to be involved in every election. And that's why right now we're out registered voters 2-to-1, Democrats to Republicans. in our district. So it matters how much we have to block, but it doesn't matter unless you show up to vote. And so in the education standards, that should be controlled at the local level. That's why you need a vote at the school boards. It's why you need to be involved in anything that involves your children. Because if you leave it to the liberals, they're going to be teaching your kids how to have sex instead of how to take precautions of science, which is A effect and B effect cause C effect. Not how to have sex. Texas, we need to go back to our Christian values. We need to treat traditional science and traditional history. That way we don't repeat it again. And if you ignore history, we'll repeat it again. So I encourage you to get involved in school boards. I encourage you to get involved in every way possible. And if the school districts ain't doing their job, then seek alternatives with school choice, private charter. Because if they're doing best practices there and they're not implementing it in ISDs, then you have the option to take the kid out. And I think that's what we need to do in ISDs. Take best practices of charter and private schools and implement them into ISDs. Those are called lessons learned. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And what can we do better? That needs to be applied into all academics. Thank you.
I also believe in local control, unless local control is out of control. I believe that our teachers do need more freedom in the classroom so that they can best, I'm sorry, I need to speak up now. So they can best improve their students' educational outcomes in the classrooms. I would like to see, of course, less emphasis on standardized testing and expand vocational training for students. And I do believe that our local school boards need more control to be able to reward our good, hardworking teachers with raises.
Lanny, where are you? Is she here? Thank you. Stand up. Thank you for what you represent. Everyone, give Lanny a round of applause. She's endorsed by Kim Mercer for the State Board of Education because she represents what's best about people working in public education. An understanding that we don't run away, we don't shy away from our bedrock conservative Judeo-Christian principles and values. We ought to be proud of those things and proud to have them in the classroom. Mom, thank you for being a solid example of what a public educator should be. I got to watch that example every day growing up. I got to see it in the classroom. Someone who understands that traditional education, the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, putting your hand on your heart and saying the pledge, and unashamedly being afraid to pray in the classroom, those are good things. Who makes those decisions? I think that it should be the job, if the system works at its best, it should be the job of schools. It should be the job of local decision makers. When that doesn't happen, when you see what we see in Austin School District, what's creeping into the Wimberley School District, you push back. You use the legislature if you have to. When local decision making is out of control and destructive of our values, we take control. The legislature can be that strong voice. We don't allow people that would demonize a traditional education, that would stand against our Judeo-Christian conservative principles and values. We don't let them win the day. We fight for it. Thank you.
Next question. Do you support groundwater being managed or rule of capture?
Well, I believe it's a finite resource. I grew up ranching, So it's a livelihood as well, not only to human beings, but to livestock. So I think if somebody has water rights and they're going to be good stewards of it, then they should be able to do what they need to do with it. But if they're selling it outside your district, I think that's a problem. That's being counterproductive to the masses of our society. If we go down this slippery slope of selling off our water rights to outside municipals and outside states, we're going to be in the same predicament as Garden Ridge. In Garden Ridge, they pay more for water than they do electricity. And that's what we don't need to happen here in our district. So we need to work with city engineers to make sure we're not overdeveloping our local areas that doesn't have the resources to support those. So if we're overpopulated in dense areas, and we're putting too much expectation on those water resources, then it was self-induced. So then that's when you need to get involved with city council. You need to get involved with your county commissioners. So that way, you, the bosses, take control of every aspect of what may affect you in the next 50 years. I went from wanting to build a house in Dripping Springs and looked at the 50-year projection and decided Blanco was far better. So I was like, who's selling ranch property? But thank you. Awesome.
I forgot to mention that I am endorsed by the State Board of Education member Ken Mercer, Johnson City ISD Principal Michael Norton, Blanco ISD School Board member Tim Nance, and others from Hays County. I do support rule of capture. That is part of our private property rights. Very important. I do believe that the Texas legislature can protect our groundwater from commercial wells that may be overpumping. And that is exactly what Jason Isaac did with the Save Our Wells bill. Thank you.
Yes, I do support rule of capture. Water is a complicated issue. It's extremely complicated. I've had the privilege of looking at it from both sides. I've represented property owners associations who have had disputes with water service providers. I've represented real estate developers that have had problems with groundwater districts. I've appeared before the state office at administrative hearings, and I've dealt with these matters. And there's no easy fix, but it's going to be incumbent on us moving forward to understand we're in a region with finite resources. And what does that mean? That means we have to be responsible and we have to be good stewards. Growth at all costs isn't what we stand for. As Republicans, as conservatives, we do support private property rights and we allow people to use their private property. But you can't destroy a local community. You have to understand the limits and the burdens that natural resources and infrastructure place on growth and grow to that. And the community is going to grow with it. We embrace that growth, we embrace that change, but we understand those limits. Water is a precious resource. And I can promise you, if elected as your next state representative, I'll value that resource. And I will work to make sure that it's not taken and transferred and flagrantly used. We have to preserve this part of the country because it's special. Thank you.
The next question is also a two-part question. What is your individual position on immigration, illegal immigration, and immigration reform? How can Texas support the national effort?
So I lived in Laredo, Texas for 6.5 years. I got first generation Americans in my family that married in as well. And we take great pride that we say we're on both sides of the border as well as both sides of the bow and arrow. I think when I witnessed 378 people swear in for their citizenship up in Boston when I was with the reserve unit there before I switched just recently to Texas, back to Texas. Every one of them only took 2 to 10 years to get through the immigration process. They all put their hand on their heart and swore, they said they pledged allegiance. They all raised their right hand and took the oath of citizenship, which has almost verbatim 90% of it is the same oath I took in uniform. So we need to refine our immigration policies that help people that want to come here and be productive members of society. The reason why I was out there is because a young lady spent 2 years trying to become a citizen, and she was wearing the uniform during that 2 years in the Army. So she was willing to die for you and every men and women in this establishment before she was even able to call herself an American citizen. So that is something I take to heart, that we need to turn around and reform for people who want to be productive members of society. But we don't need to ignore the problems that we have south of the border. I went to school with Gonzalez Bass kids. He was the cartel leader that gunned down 5 people as we're coming out of Bible study on Wednesday in broad daylight. He's now spending life in Webb County Prison. If his son or daughter wanted to sit in your desk, you got up and you let them sit there. So the wall and sensors and technology and more personnel on our border is because we're separating predators from potential victims. And then we can reform immigration and allow people that want to come here the legal way and be citizens. Thank you.
I support President Trump in his efforts to secure our borders. I will work to make sure that we have the funds to secure our border, to protect our families and our communities. The federal government has failed to secure our border, and I believe we should send them a new voice. Thank you.
I think President Trump has it exactly right. We build the wall. But there's a 2-pronged approach in my mind to immigration. What is that approach? You have to consider what we're doing to push illegal immigration away and what we're doing to pull it to this country. By building the wall, by having adequate border security, we do what we can to push it away. But the second part of the question is what's incentivizing people to come here? 40, 50, 60 years ago, what you saw was opportunity. Working age men came to this country, they made money, and they sent it home. Well, that's not the case now. You have women, children, and families crossing the border. You have people that claim asylum simply because they want a better life. And listen, no one can blame them. This is the greatest place in the history of the world. Who wouldn't want to be here? But you can't just come because you want to come. Immigration the right way is what we support. But to that second issue, what's pulling people here? Healthcare, education, entitlements, welfare. All of these things that they're lacking in other parts of the world. And we must methodically work at the state level to counteract that. One of the most destructive U.S. Supreme Court cases I believe there is a decision that said, if you are a child here in this country, you're entitled to a free public education. And that's dead wrong. What we have to have is smart and thoughtful legislation that provides us an end to attack that type of Supreme Court decision, to undo that damage. If you're a U.S. citizen, you're entitled to that education. But I'm telling you, we have got to counteract those problems.
When faced with tough legislative issues, competing priorities, and limited budgets, how do you plan to achieve your most important goals?
I think everybody in this room has spent time. How many have gone to SREC conventions? How many people have gone to state conventions? We've got even more hands that came up. So you took time out of your life to vote on priority blank items that's within our party. I think it's my job to prioritize those to be passed. We passed over 1,000 bills last year, and we got 60 out of the 332 priorities. How many were in the top 50? How many were in the top 25? How many were in the top 10? So I'm tired of talking about our priorities, because that should be something that we do all the time. So when legislators come to me and say, Mr. Talley, we'd like you to sign this bill, I'm going to say, well, I have top 50 priorities, top 100 priorities. Sign these, co-author those. I'll look at that. Hey, why don't you sign this term limit bill too? Because I think if we can't get the job done in 8 years and it was good enough for George Washington, then you probably shouldn't have that job anymore. That's why term limits are a double-edged sword. So I can promise you I will prioritize what you want me to do as a legislator because it's our party priorities. And then I will also take deep thought and meaningful thought to figure out what is good for Blanco and Hays County, because that is my job, is representing you. And $41 million of tax-paying lobbying should be spent per year to go do the same job. And it shouldn't be counterproductive. So if I'm a good steward of your money, which is required for legislation, and I'm fully transparent, then I'm doing a good job because you can call me out when I'm not. And 25 Republicans voted against that last legislation. So we don't need more of the same. We need people that are going to hold themselves accountable because you're holding me accountable. I work for you, and I encourage you to hire the best applicant for this job. Thank you.
We can cut wasteful spending, like spending $300,000 a month, like TRS is doing for rent. We can also stop state agencies from taking trips to Hawaii, like TABC was doing before Jason Isaacs stopped them and cut them from being able to travel outside the state. I will look for more wasteful spending like this and cut it so that we can afford to fund the things that are more important to us in this state. Thank you.
Carlette, I think your question was, what are we going to do when faced with tough decisions? How do we reconcile that? Like anything else in life, I can tell you exactly what I'm going to do if I have a tough decision. I'm going to go talk to the one person in this world I love more than anyone else. Her name's Amy. And then I'm going to go pray. Tough decisions will hit you every day. There are going to be people in this district, one side of the district and another, that are going to have, even within our own party, they're going to have different expectations. But trust in those that you love and trust in the Lord. Ask Him for wisdom. Let Him lead your heart. And you'll do what's right. And I can promise you, that's what I do on a daily basis. When I'm making the tough decision, it's tough walking out every morning, going on the campaign trail, leaving the 4 kids behind. But I know that I'm doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing. And that's the mentality that will prevail when making decisions in the legislature. Thank you.
What is your position on gun rights, the Second Amendment, especially since it seems to be under attack in the United States on a daily basis?
That's where I go back again. As Republicans, we've controlled the House, the Senate, and the governor's office since 2006. If Jason Isaac won a constitutional carry, he would have got it done. I'm a lifetime member of NRA. I've used the weapon in defense of my country and our freedoms that we all enjoy. The Constitution is an instruction manual. So I know when we all buy furniture from IKEA when we were younger, or our kids do, we hate reading instruction manuals. That's all we have to do, is read the instruction manual and simply apply what it says. It's an inalienable right. It can't be taken away. So I fully support constitutional carry. I want to do nullification of ATF requirement in the state of Texas for all residents. So that means if you wanted to go buy a suppressor and you're a law-abiding citizen, you can go buy a suppressor. Why should we have to pay taxes on it? I want you to not have to do that national directory of registering your firearm because you're already doing a background check. So why are we doing redundancies? I will follow the Constitution, I will fully support it, and I promise you I will get the people that are supposed to pass legislation, like 15 other states. If we're the flag bearer of conservative values in the state of Texas for the rest of the world to follow, we got a lot of catching up to do. 15 other states have already passed constitutional carry. 9 states have passed nullification of ATF requirements. Well, Oklahoma sucks. Oklahoma! We've got to catch up to them because they're already beating us at that. Thank you.
Austin, we have not passed constitutional carry in the Texas House because we don't have enough conservatives. Jason Isaac was one of the most conservative people in the Texas House. He called out my husband.
They're calling the majority.
They're not all conservatives, they're Republicans. I am endorsed by the NRA for a reason. Because I'm the best candidate to beat Winger in November. I'm the best person to defend our Second Amendment rights. And I do support constitutional carry. We should not have to pay to exercise our constitutional rights. Thank you.
I don't think you're going to find much disagreement in this room on this issue. Austin, you're right. Gary, you're right. Second Amendment is our roadmap. Everyone in this room has the right to own and carry a firearm as they see fit, and it's not the government's business. They might as well get out of the way. And anything that we do to prevent that is unconstitutional. You know, the scary part to me is there are a lot of people in this country that think, well, we're going to pass another law, we're going to make this country more safe. Absolutely no, you're not. You know what you're going to do? You're going to make it less safe. Because everyone in this room, good, decent, hard-working, tax-paying, law-abiding citizen, it's the people that have ill intent, the people that want to do wrong. They're going to get something, they're going to do it, and if they don't have a firearm, they'll take a baseball bat, they'll take a car, they'll do whatever they can to do wrong. We have to stand for people that want to do things the right way. We need to pass constitutional carry. We need to do whatever we can in the legislature to stand up for your Second Amendment rights. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Candidates, what are your thoughts regarding negative or attack ads during the primary?
I think if they have to do with being productive or not productive, being ethical or not ethical, then I think that's called advertisement of transparency. Do I agree with mudslinging? No, I don't, because it's just not in good form as Republicans with what we've normally done. But if you look at how Trump has been a fighter and a trailblazer, he sticks it to him on social media, and he sticks it to him on legislation. So we don't need a sheep to go be the face of our district. We need a sheepdog who has the teeth and fangs and the ability to fight that wolf who wants to destroy our society. And if you're going to fight Aaron Zwiner, then you have to be a fighter. You can't just identify what she's done wrong. You have to be willing to say what you're going to do right and show that you've proven to do right. And if you lose your temper in a debate because somebody identifies what didn't get done in the last 20 years of legislation, well, I can tell you Aaron Zwiner's going to be a lot worse than me.
Carla, can you repeat? You said the primary, correct?
Yes, the question was, what are your thoughts regarding negative or
believe that candidates that sling mud because they're losing, and they cannot win by telling people what they can do for you. Instead, they are trying to tell you why they should not vote for their opponent instead of focusing on why you should vote for them. And I think it's pretty pathetic and sad.
Carlette, I somehow think that that question was asked because of me.
No, sir, no, there are no pointed questions.
No, listen, folks, you know, take a message how you will. Call it negative. But I think we need to look to what negative is. Is negative the dissemination of accurate information? Is negative telling the truth? Now I'm going to tell you, when I stand up in courtrooms across this state, I say a lot of very pointed things. I have to. Because I'm being paid by clients to advocate for a cause. And believe me, I only accept a case if I think I'm doing what's right. But you say what's truthful. No matter how hard it is, no matter what those consequences are. If you believe that what you're doing is right, then you do it. You stand for it. It doesn't matter if it's a primary. It doesn't matter if it's a general. Because just like I said earlier, this isn't about us. This is about the future of our state and the future of our nation. And if information is being delivered at any point that is relevant and is helpful to each and every one of you making your decision about what you want to see for the future of your district, and by God, you need to see it. This isn't about party politics. It's about having a full understanding of what faces you. And from that point, making the decision about who is best qualified and best capable to carry your conservative message in the general election in November. And I believe I'm that candidate. Thank you.
I would ask you to please be specific, especially for this question. What is your position on abortion, and do you support legislation to abolish abortion?
I've already taken that pledge with Abolish Abortion in Texas, proudly took that. And the reason why I took that is I was born 3 months premature. I weighed 2 pounds, 3 ounces, and I dropped down to 1 pound, 4 ounces, and every doctor in that room told my dad he's not going to make it through the night. My dad is like, well, maybe God has a different plan, and we'll see. They flew me in a helicopter from one hospital to another, so my dad said you were airborne the day you were born. And every doctor said, no, we can put them in the ICU, and we're going to take care of them as long as we can. He's probably not going to make it through the week. They told him that as my youth, told me that in my teens. My dad shared the story with me that I share with you today when I made it to Hell Week in SEAL training. So every life that is given on this earth, no matter what the circumstances are, should be valued and protected, because that's the role of government. Protect life and liberty and get out of your way so you can pursue happiness. And as long as your pursuit of happiness doesn't affect somebody else's life and somebody else's liberty, the government shouldn't have a say. And that's what I feel about protecting human life from the time it's conceived. So I promise you that it will be protected, and we have to follow a minimum suit of our neighbors and protect the heartbeat or brain function. But in the state of Texas, let's be the leaders of the nation and protect life from day one. Thank you.
I do support abolishing abortion. I believe the tide is turning on this issue. I believe recently over 200 congressmen and women have actually asked the courts to overturn Roe versus Wade. I am also proud to be endorsed by Texas Right to Life and Pro-Life Texas. Thank you.
The answer to your question is unequivocally yes. Abortion is murder. I was proud to receive recent endorsement from Texas Alliance for Life. After a very lengthy interview, they made that decision, and I'm proud to receive this endorsement. To me, this is more than simply looking at the question, do you oppose abortion? I think we have to look at the cultural shift in our nation. When President George W. Bush was elected, Virginia voted Republican. Now they have a governor, a man by the name of Ralph Northam, who only a few months ago was interviewed. He took the position that a baby that has already been born could be aborted after being born. It baffles me. And that's actually, for some people, a legitimate part of the conversation. I don't know how we got here as a society. But it's disgusting. For everyone in this room. And I've said this, and I'll say it, I've said this to many people. You take every other issue, wipe it off the table. Democrats can have whatever they want if we could abolish Roe v. Wade. This is the single greatest social and moral issue of our time. This will define the heart of our nation. I watched 4 kids being born. And there's nothing like it. If we can't fix this problem, then what do we stand for? We are all God's creatures, and He calls us to love and protect life, and I can promise you, there is nothing that I will fight for more than this.
Blanco County property owners pay millions of dollars in school taxes yearly. In turn, the districts must pay millions of dollars in Chapter 41 recapture funds back to the state, which is known as Robin Hood. What is your remedy to help school districts keep their tax money?
I answered that question with the interview of Austin Statesman, giving us luckily access to 800,000 social media viewers. I think we're robbing our communities by giving that recapture. And I think that was meant when populations weren't as dense as they are now. But we need to get back to the utilizing our tax revenue for the intended purposes. They all sold me that bill of goods. I should say, sold my parents that bill of goods when I was 16 for the lie. Well, let's put that money back into education. Education is supposed to be the bedrock of equalizing society. And we're ranked 34th in the nation right now, and we got NASA down the street in Houston. That's a disservice to our community. So you need a legislator who's going to go in there and fight for the tax dollars to go back into the community. But we also need to look at some things of our district appraisal board. What is that composed of? We also need to look at who the chief appraisal and why isn't that an elected position. Get involved within your community so you know exactly where your tax dollars are, because I promise you I'm going to be involved more than anybody who's ever been elected before me. Find out where every one of your tax dollars is going. Thank you.
I believe we do need to get rid of Robin Hood. But I also believe that we need to make sure that our education dollars are actually making it into the classroom. According to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, only 1/3 of our education dollars actually make it into the classroom. That is unacceptable. We need to make sure that our teachers are a priority and our students in the classroom.
I've great problems with the recapture system, and I know it's felt here in this district. This is a district where it's in Blanco and in Johnson City, where I know that districts have a hard time making ends meet because the state doesn't adequately consider the needs. Every district ought to have the opportunity to provide for their children's needs. That opportunity is being taken away by this present system. Now, I can't tell you if the answer is going to be to completely abolish it, or if it's just substantial reform. But what I can tell you is the status quo is untenable. One of my law professors is the man that litigated the case that led to the initial finding that the funding model is unconstitutional. Well, yeah, there are a lot of problems with it. What is it that we can do to allow dollars to stay at home? I would love to see heightened accountability put in place. Districts submit a budget, full fiscal year out, scrutinized. I'm sorry?
Vouchers.
And vouchers? I think that there are wonderful things with alternate funding, with alternate education. But back to the question. We've got to give local decision makers the opportunity to keep their local dollars at home, to meet the needs of their own students. Because if we don't, we're failing them and their education is suffering. Thank you.
I want you to pick one of the following topics which you feel is important and briefly explain your thoughts. You can choose property taxes, our schools, securing our borders, homelessness, or protection of the unborn. And I can repeat those if you choose.
Property taxes, schools, border.
Homelessness, protecting the unborn.
Well, I think you heard a lot of what I had to say about border, protecting the unborn. You know, I'm unwavering on that. Unwavering on that. So I'm going to talk about property tax. Property tax is what's taxing us out of our communities. Property tax got sold to us that reform came down in '87, and they all patted each other on the back and they said CGI. And I wasn't happy. I felt like I was back in the population if everybody gets a trophy. So I could promise you in the 87th session, not 86, in the 87th session, we will provide meaningful tax reform, property tax reform. We're going to evaluate how we're doing our property valuations. That's why I said it needs to be composed of everybody who's the everyday Jack and Jill. Somebody who doesn't have a vested interest for it to be overinflated to the top 10%. I think property tax is proven on the day to purchase, day to sell, and day to repurposing. And if it's not doing that, then we don't need to constantly inflate it to 10% or close to it. It needs to go back to the natural rate of inflation. If you have to operate in the natural rate of inflation because your salaries may not keep up to that, the government should operate in the natural rate of inflation. That's 2 to 4%. Tired of this big piggy bank that they think is theirs, but it's your pockets, so it's yours. So I will take lots of consideration of what we're doing with every dollar. I will scrutinize it more than anybody, because that's my job in nonprofits, to be very transparent. We use 92 cents of every dollar that's donated to OSD for the intended to use. The federal government says 3% is only all that's needed. You'll never get a grant. But I think if you operate with the utmost transparency and be the absolute good stewards of your community's dollar, then it will be a successful government for you, our boss.
Property taxes. I would like to see a more strict spending cap at the state level of population plus inflation. I would like to see the remaining revenue used to buy down the schools' maintenance and operations taxes. That is the largest taxes that we pay. Experts say that we can pay these taxes off in about 10 to 11 years. If we do this, our taxes will be cut. Our tax bills will go down. Thank you.
There's no question it's property taxes. And and the thousands of doors that I've knocked on in this district, that is the #1 issue. Well, first issue was people want to know do you support the president. Second issue is property taxes. And I'm going to tell you, this comes down to one basic issue. We're taxing people out of property ownership. So what's the fix? I think the legislature did some good work last time. When you look at what they did, that's fine. But the second part of the equation is valuing properties. What are we going to do about it? We have a budget surplus in the state of Texas. That tells me one thing. We're overtaxing people. We can do with less. So what do? I'm a proponent of statutorily reducing rates and then putting an annual dollar cap. You know, the tough part every year is people get that sinking feeling in the pit of their stomach because they don't know what that bill's going to say. They open it up, what does that number look like? If we put an annual dollar cap, you pick your number, $100, $200, you know that your property taxes can increase no more than a certain number of dollars, that sinking feeling goes away. You're provided certainty. You can plan. You know what else that does? That de facto eliminates the protest system because everyone in this room and across the state of Texas that would otherwise think about challenging their property taxes, they wouldn't do it because it wouldn't be worth it. And in the process, you eliminate a bloated bureaucracy. And if we reduce those rates enough, and folks, this must result in a net decrease in taxes for people or it doesn't work. I would be a proponent of looking to an alternate funding mechanism, a minor increase in the sales tax on non-essentials, because we have a lot of people living in this state that aren't paying their fair share on taxes. And I think that's a bit more equitable. Non-essentials only, though, if we do that. Thank you.
So those are all of our prepared questions. I want to give each of you up to 5 minutes to tell us what you have to say about yourselves. Feel free to touch on anything that you feel appropriate at this time. One thing I do want you to be considerate of is, let's be considerate of each other. Also, I would like you to tell us how you're going to beat Aaron's wiener and why we should choose you over the person sitting next to you.
So we're in I feel like we have two trailblazers in their conservative values throughout my present life. And one is President Donald Trump, and the other is Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh was conservative before conservatism was cool, as Chip Roy said. So, let's remember him in our prayers. But how many believe, whether you agree with Donald Trump in the beginning, because I guarantee you'll probably vote for him again, 2020. How many people are voting for Donald Trump in 2020? Do you want to attribute that to the fact that he was an outsider with proven skill sets, proven experiences, proven ability to reflect on his life and say, if I'm faced with this trouble, I'm going to be able to overcome it. I have extreme perspective on life. Did 7 years in combat out of 9.5 years of rotation. I worked for two of the most sought out intelligence agencies our government has to have founded of the 14. I know what it means to lose a friend. I know what it means to shake a friend's hand and then that friend is no longer there 30 minutes later. So, Medal of Honor recipient Colonel Jack Jacobs said before he became a multimillionaire, when he was going to his new job, and they said, how do you think you can do this job? He's like, well, I'm not getting shot at. I'm not getting blown up. So I'm pretty certain I can do this job. So, if I can get a Taliban to come to Team America, I'm basically selling treason. I'm the best salesman out there. If I can get a Taliban to come Team America and support our ideologies and our value systems and what we hold dear to our heart, I'm pretty certain I can get a Republican to come sign this bill. I don't think they're morally corrupt. Now, Democrat, I'm going to use every trick in the book to get them to realize this is the greater good for our district, the greater good for the state of Texas. So I'm pretty persuasive. That's why a lot of times my companies put me in for to do negotiation. Been doing it for a long time. Been doing it since 1998. When I signed the dotted line. I have a lot of perspective to bring to this. I have proven skill sets. I know how to unite a team in the most austere location of the world, in the most hostile work environment. I know how to unite a team, complete objectives, tasks, and ensure that the mission gets done no matter what. Because that's the job. And if you're not willing to work 16 or 20-hour days of 140 days a session, you don't deserve the job. Our men and women put on a uniform and they go overseas. They're away from their kids. They don't go to T-ball. They don't do all the things that we take for granted in our life because that's what the sacrifice is. Well, my sacrifice is to be at that state legislation office for 16, 20-hour days for 140 days. And nobody's going to outwork me. And I promise you I'm going to use my connections that I have in the federal government and border security. I hope to be a part of the commission for Homeland Security and Public Safety. So we don't have people like Poncho get in trouble smuggling drugs to the airport. I want to be on the International Trade Commission because I have an international business degree, tons of relationships overseas that's going to focus on what I grew up in. That's farming and that's ranching. We're number one in cotton, number one in cattle in the state of Texas. And the other is energy. I want to bring the Texas economy from the 10th strongest economy to the 7th strongest economy in less than 4 years. I'll get most of that work in the first session, I promise you that. The next thing I want to be on is the Veteran Commission. Because it's near and dear to my heart. I'm also a veteran. Maybe our boards should be composed of people who have actually done the job outside of being a legislator. If you're going to be on the Homeland Security Board, maybe you've done counterterrorism or law enforcement, counter-narcotics. I've done those things. When Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana, I was 25 years old. I was already in the agency, and I was teaching kids firearms at the time because I was in between rotations. Hurricane Katrina hit, and they said, your entire class, if you guys want to go, we'll end it now, you guys can go do it. Well, I was one of the instructors, so they said, Austin, you need to be in charge. Okay, what am I getting into? High-fived my friend on the runway because he had to go to Mississippi. I was in charge of Louisiana, everything south of Baton Rouge. So I know how to get things done with the government.
I've been involved in my community for about 15 years in this district. I believe that nonprofits and churches do a much better job of taking care of our neighbors in need than government. And that is why I have volunteered on the Dripping Springs Food Pantry Board for over 10 years. I am proud of my involvement with my boys' schools. Brewster Springs Elementary School recognized my volunteer hours by dedicating a book in my name for their library. Jason and I started the Dripping Springs lacrosse program about 8 years ago. We have hosted the Dripping Springs Fire in the Sky 4th of July celebration for the last 8 years. Giving back to our first responders. My passion is health and wellness. I own a small health and wellness business. I serve on the board of It's Time Texas. It's the only statewide health and wellness nonprofit. Our motto is Texas is best when Texas is healthy. I served as the chair of the Dripping Springs Mayor's Health and Wellness Council, and I led our community to win first place in a health and wellness competition. I'm an Ironman, which means I have run, biked, and swam 140.6 miles in less than 17 hours. I am mentally and physically tough. These skills will help me win in 2020 of November. And they will also serve me well during those late nights on the House floor. I've been endorsed by the NRA, the Texas State Rifle Association, Texas Right to Life, Pro-Life Texas, Texas Values Action, Texas Homeschool Coalition, Texas State College Republicans, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, Texas Ag Commissioner Sid Miller, Texas Railroad Commissioner Wayne Christian, State Board of Education member Ken Mercer. But most importantly, I have been endorsed by over 200 conservative local leaders across this district, including over 50 current and former elected officials. Aaron Sweener is the 6th most liberal Democrat socialist in the Texas House out of 150 members. I'm the best candidate to beat her in November. I'm the only candidate that not only has the local support, I also have the statewide support. I have out-fundraised both of my primary opponents combined. I have the fundraising ability to win in November. I have the campaign experience. I have campaigned every election cycle for the last 10 years, and I have experience beating Democrats. We must keep Texas free. Free from gangs and drug cartels. Free from business-crushing regulations. Free from gun-grabbing politicians. Free from leftist dogma in our schools. And free from leftists like Aaron Sweener who want to transform our state. Keep Texas free. Vote Carrie Isaac. Thank you.
How do you beat Aaron? I think there's several different answers to that question. The first is you have to work hard. The second part is, this is a big district. It's a rapidly changing district with a lot of growth. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to take the ability of a candidate that can transcend party politics, that can work and have connections, not only within our Republican base, but also outside of the base. I've got familial, personal relationships in this district that span decades. I was here before politics was on the table for me. I'm here now, and I can promise you this, I'll be here after. It is those deep roots and those connections that are going to be so very important. I want to touch briefly on the issue of fundraising, because I think it's important to understand. When the first fundraising reports came out, there was a discrepancy. But what I can tell you is between the summer of last year and the end of last year, the last fundraising reporting period that we have information on, when people really started to pay attention and when everyone was in the game, I outraised both of my opponents combined. There's a shift when everyone starts playing ball. The other thing I want to point out is strong local support. I could go through the list of my local endorsements, but they're on my website. One of the endorsements I'm most proud of is Ken Stretch. I know a lot of folks in this room know Ken. He's a man of honor. He's a man of integrity. One of the most decent, fine human beings I've ever known. I think he represents what's best about this district. And I've told him on numerous occasions, I said, Ken, you're probably the perfect candidate for this district. Quite frankly, we would all probably be better off if he hadn't been swept out, if he were our representative, because he's that good a man. You know, something else I want to tell you about is my party involvement. From 2009 to 2012, I served as the chairman of the Republican Party in Hays County. We had a lot of success during that time, and I wish I could take all the credit for it, but you know, it was a team effort. We had a lot of people working really hard and did a lot of great things during that time. It falls on the shoulders of our community working hard and fundamentally and transformatively changing what had been a pretty moderate district. I still believe that exists. I presently serve as the general counsel of the Hays County Republican Party. One of the things that I'm most proud of over the past several years, does anyone in this room know who Lon Shell is? Lon Shell is one of our county commissioners in Hays County. He represents Precinct 3. Last election cycle, the university vote almost wiped him out of office. He won by 37 votes. And by winning by 37 votes, Lon maintained a 3-2 Republican majority on the Commissioner's Court in Hays County. We were 37 votes away from Democrats controlling the Commissioner's Court in Hays County. So what did his opponent do? His opponent filed a lawsuit against him and challenged the results of that election. Lon had to hire attorneys. I was proud and honored to be one of those attorneys that Lon hired. To me, there was no greater honor than one of our party's strongest leaders, a well-respected man, across the aisle, would reach out and ask me to represent him. I'm proud to say that we successfully represented him. The lawsuit was dismissed, and the Republican majority on our Commissioner's Court in Hays County was preserved. You don't get hired by someone like that when you don't have a reputation. But when you have, when you've invested in your community, when you've loved your community, when you're part of it, people see, people take notice. And I want to give you that same voice. Sincerely, thank you for being here tonight from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.